The reproduction of this content is not allowed without the express written consent of EBH Fitness, LLC. We're back. And we are back. Welcome to another episode of the Borderlands Sports Report. This is Week 5 Coaches Wrap Up, and we are joined here by Franklin High School head coach Rubin Torres. Coach, thanks for joining us and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Appreciate you coming on here every week and talking about the game, your team, your players, but also to help in expanding El Paso sports here in the area. So let's jump right into it, man. You guys had a huge win this past week. On paper, not so much, but in the community, that was a huge win. And I say on paper, not so much, because I think on paper, everybody expected you guys to win. The reality is that game, that Westside Bowl, I mean, it comes down to heart, like we talked about last week, and you guys came out, and to use a boxing term, y'all hit him in the mouth first and kept punching.
Yeah, when you get into this Westside Bowl, having been involved in it as an assistant, seems like most years there's some quirky stuff that happens early on in the game with both teams trying to settle in. And then it being homecoming week for us, all the extra stuff, could be a distraction. But I was really proud of our kids and our coaches and keeping the game the main thing. And I felt like, early on, our first pass, could have got picked. But, I felt like pretty much for the whole game, we were settled in and focused, and our kids played real hard, as did Coronado's. We were just able to execute at a high level for 3.5 quarters.
Yeah, and you guys were able to put a lot of pressure on West Stansbury. I think he spent more time on his back than he did standing up. And that's a tribute to you guys' front four and the pressure you were put on there, I think, more so than anything else. So what were some of the things that you guys wanted to do going into the game from the defensive side that executed very well during this game?
I think the number one goal for us was trying to keep their receivers in front of us. They do have a talented group, and Stansbury, if you watch his film, it can be extremely deadly with his deep ball. And so for us, staying in coverage, not taking our eyes in the backfield, doing our best to keep them in front of us was going to be huge. And I felt like we did that for the most part Thursday night. We did try to bring some pressures with linebackers that, they weren't hitting home as much as we thought. And so we had to challenge our D-line to get pressure with 4. And I think in the second half, especially our defensive end, Adonis Bustillos, he had 4 sacks, won some one-on-ones with their tackle. So that was real big for us. And I think, in any game, when you can get pressure with 4 guys and not have to start bringing a 5th or a 6th, your defense is playing pretty well. We kind of felt like they'd come out and try to quick game us and throw their middle screens a lot more often and earlier in the game. That didn't happen. They did kind of go to it in the middle of the game, and they converted some third downs on those, especially out in the flats. But overall, I felt like our defense played really well. Statistically, when you look at the stats, our best performance this year. We gave up a touchdown cheap late in the fourth quarter. Kind of a safety lost his footing and fell, and they
Yeah.
got a big explosive play. I mean, we when I saw the ball go in the air, I felt like it was a good ball and they were going to catch it. I was hoping that we would have kept our feet and at least minimized the damage, but they got a big long touchdown throw on that. But overall, I felt like our defense played really well.
Yeah, they had six
Really
sacks.
negated.
6 sacks total for the defense.
Yes, yeah. And I'm trying to pull up our stats right now. Just some big things that really stood out to me was, we always preach about winning the line of scrimmage, and so they had 15 runs for 15 yards. Stansbury had a nice scramble for 9. We did have 8 sacks for negative 43 yards, and so we held their offense to a total of 24 yards rushing for negative 19. And then, he was 18 for 31 passing with 191, 60 on the long touchdown. But holding them to a total of 172 yards of offense was a big win for our defense, and allowed us to when we did get the ball on offense to maximize our possessions and score. And I thought they did a good job offensively over there at Coronado of keeping the ball and using the clock as best they could away from us. And so, overall, I thought we put together a pretty good game.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue to the other side of the ball. You guys had, I think, around 602 total yards on offense, 522 on the ground, 80 in the air. Um, and that was spearheaded by that man, that young man, Ernie Powers, to 388 yards on 25 carries, 7 touchdowns. And then Lucas Garza goes 8 for 14, 80 yards and a touchdown. Now, I was looking this morning. So Ernie right now is the leading rusher in the state of Texas, number 2 in the nation at 1,570, I think it's 75 or 78 yards. But he's number 1 in the country in touchdowns at 27. How as a coach do you balance that young man? Because I know I have a feeling, I don't know this for sure, but I have a feeling that this may be one of his goals is to break some records this year. How do you as a coach balance that and ensuring that young man stays healthy, not only for the rest of the season, but for later on in his career?
Yeah, when you look at the films,
He isn't getting hit a lot.
Ernie, yeah, he doesn't take a lot of clean shots. I think Coronado probably so far this year has done the best job of gang tackling them. But even when you look at some of those clips, he's carrying 3 to 4 guys. Um, we did try to rotate him out a little bit more this game. One of the things was when you talk about records, and this was a lot more on me than on him. Once he hit 5, we started looking at the single game rushing record for the state of Texas, and it's held by Jonathan Gray at 7. Um, and so we thought we had an opportunity to do something special for Ernie his senior year, and so he was able to get himself that 7th touchdown. But I think his load management is something that we pay a close attention to. His carries, we're Lubbock Monterey. He carried the ball quite a bit, but we try to keep his touches, somewhere in that 27, 28 category, and that includes his receptions. Um, but he's in such phenomenal shape. It takes care of his body so well. I think I don't think records are as important to him as he's got a chip on his shoulder as far as, the next part of his career, kind of getting slighted by, I think, some recruiters, and I have no problem saying this. I feel like if he was a different race, he'd have a lot more offers from other programs, but he understands that's something that he doesn't control. We understand over here as the coaching staff that's something we don't control, but he is a certified running back that I think can play in the SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10, and he's continued to go out there and prove that every week. And I think people that, it's one thing to watch him on film, but when you see him on the field and see, how fast he is, his vision, his violence when he runs, his pass protection's increased or has improved so much this year. He's selfless on lead blocking for Trey, and even our quarterback on a couple of things we're doing. Um, I would say that's probably the only thing he's really focused on is winning games, and he's got a chip on his shoulder to showcase to the country how great he really is.
And I think that's the same thing that happened to a former teammate of his, Bo Sparks.
Yeah.
And at some point, you have to look at talent for what it is. Talent is talent. So no, I got you there for sure, Coach. Um, who else stood out on the offensive side for you guys that really caught your eye this week?
Well, Trey De La Riva, our other running back. Our tight end got a little banged up with his foot in the first series, and so Trey, had to line up at fullback, tailback, tight end. But Trey's a kid that, if he was at any other school, he'd be a starting running back for them. And we've been able to get the ball into his hands a little bit more as the season's gone on. But when you look at him carrying the football, he's just as effective. He may not have the breakaway speed that Ernie does, but he's a north-south runner with great vision. He's got great hands out of the backfield. He caught that screen pass for a touchdown. So I think Trey's effort and his production and always ready to be called upon when we need him has just been impressive, really, week to week for us. I thought our offensive line took another step forward. Not just both our tackles who get a lot of the attention, but I thought our guards played really well down there inside the trenches. And again, week to week, our receivers outside on the perimeter and their selflessness and blocking has been tremendous for Ernie to get those yards and for Trey to break yards, and so that's refreshing to see. And Lucas has just done a great job of managing the game, and when called upon, he executes and delivers for us. So we're still seeing the growth from the players and the offense as we go week to week, and that's really encouraging for us as a coaching staff. But this week we'll be playing Montwood, and they pose a different set of challenges, and we have our work cut out for us, especially trying to minimize their production on offense. And so we're in district play, and Montwood, I don't think their record is reflective of how talented they are and what they can do. And we definitely don't want to be the first team to give them their first win this week.
Great segue, Coach. Great segue. So as you guys look forward to the Montwood game this coming week, and you talked about that record. They're 0-1 in the district, 0-5 on the season. What are some of the things you all will look to take away from them from the defensive side?
Well, they're basically running an RPO every snap, and so our eyes, especially with our back seven, we've got to be extremely disciplined, which is going to cause us to probably play a little bit slower, making sure that ball is handed off when they do. But they're probably about a 70-30 pass to run team. The quarterback is extremely athletic. He runs really well. He throws the ball down the field. with good velocity, good touch. He's deadly accurate, and that's reflective in the points that they're scoring. Got a chance to watch them against Eastlake, and they were in that game for all of 2.5 quarters, and their offense was really pushing the envelope, pushing the pace. So, we've got to be able to to stay within ourselves with their up tempo. Um, Seems like week to week, this is a big point of emphasis for us, but staying in coverage. And we can't let that quarterback get outside the pocket and extend plays. And so, for us on defense, we're going to have our work cut out for us. This is a different type of offense than what we've seen so far this year, with their commitment to the passing game and their effectiveness in it. So we're going to have to play really sound and disciplined. And offensively, we can't afford to, stall out on any offensive possessions. I think it's going to be a game where, on the scoreboard, we've got to keep pace, but try to keep their offense on the sideline as long as possible and kind of wear them down on defense and keep the momentum on our side.
Yeah, they remind me a lot of looking at the pro games when Jameis Winston was at Tampa Bay. Risk it, no biscuit, right? And so they
Right.
take a lot of risks, and it shows. It'll be interesting to see. Now, this is Steve Howard talking here. I think your front four will be able to put a lot of pressure on that offensive line and allow you guys to not have to rush extra linebackers to get pressure on the quarterback. I just think that just from what I've seen from Montwood, I think, and with you guys, I think your front four will be able to put a lot of pressure on that quarterback and cause him to have to get out of that pocket, and that's where your linebacker play is going to have to come into containing him and keeping that coverage down the field. But I don't think you guys will have any issues in solidifying that game. But hey, it's a district game. Anything can happen, and you definitely don't want to overlook any opponent. That's why we play the games.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and it's on the road. It's over there at Montwood. So we got some traveling to do to the east side. But you're right. We'd rather play coverage with 7 and 8 and really challenge our defensive front to get pressure with 4 or 3. But we're a 4-man front team predominantly, so our front four gotta hit home, because if we have to start bringing linebackers to get pressure, we're kind of playing into their hands.
Yeah. No, definitely. Well, I mean, I think I can do this live today. Typically, we do this on Tuesdays, and it'll still go out on Tuesday. And we talked about this before we started the show. So the player of the week this week will be Ernie Powers from Franklin High School. That
Awesome.
young man put on a show. He will be the first repeat performer for Player of the Week here for Borderlands Sports Report. And so I just want to say congratulations, Ernie. Congratulations to you, Coach, on that big win. And look forward to seeing you guys this coming week as y'all go to, I think y'all play at the SAC, right?
Yeah, we'll be at the SAC on Friday.
On Friday. So we'll definitely be watching that. But, hey, anything you want to say in closing, Coach?
No, just I think it was a great week of high school football, and as always, it's great to be on here with you, recapping the week and getting an opportunity to highlight our team and kids, as well as the kids that we play against. And so I think, again, it's a great thing you're doing, man, and I'm extremely honored to be a part of it.
I appreciate it. Hey, Coach, can you hang on 1 second after we end the show?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, hey, folks, this has been another episode of the Borderlands Sports Report. Continue to watch where we try to go beyond the field and get into the minds of the coaches and players. So we'll see you guys next week. Well, actually, we have a second show this week. We've got Fabian's coach coming on